I was in a car accident on Monday. Nothing serious, but shunt from behind gave me whiplash, I'm sure of it. My neck throbs all the time. Now, I'm not someone who'd usually think about litigation. It was an accident, and it was a work colleague of mine. He's an asshole, sure, but no harm, no foul. He asked that we didn't go through the insurance and that he covered himself. I know he's on good money, so who was I to argue? Tuesday, however, he turns up to work in a brand new Mercedes. My car, a Fiat Punto, now with the bumper that barely hangs on, and there's this screech that whines out when I reach 40 miles per hour. I can't go any faster for the fear of permanent hearing damage. I asked him how he's getting on with getting my car fixed. He said he had it covered. His mate will be coming over at lunch to assess the damage, and we'll quote him on what's needed. I told him I'd prefer if I just took it up to a garage and get an official quote. That's when he looked at me like I'm the shithead. His nose creased and his eyes grew small. You can't trust those people. They see you coming. Will tell you things are wrong with your car that aren't, just so you pay more for work that you don't need to be done. You know nothing about cars, do you? I was sheepish. He was right. But he made me feel so goddamn small. A pang of ire grew in my stomach. The arrogant prick. My mate'll see to it. Tuesday ended, and the mate didn't arrive. I watched him drive his C-Class out of the company car park, letting his 300-pound tires squeal as he did. I've never hated someone before, I mean really hated, where I wanted to see him crash in a fiery wreck, screaming while the central locking keeps them tucked up warm within. I wished I slammed on my brakes and heard his neck snap. Can you hear a neck breaking from within a car? The feeling only grew when I got in my car. The fucking aircon was broken, so I drove back home with the windows down, sweltering, and listening to what sounded like a banshee wail from the boot of the car. I didn't sleep well. What with the heat and massive sense of injustice that burned inside of me. Wednesday morning, around 6 a.m., I had a call. One of those damn automated insurance calls. Have you or a loved one been in an accident in the last 6 months? The stilted recording of a woman asked. Fuck off! I shouted, feeling slightly better, being able to vent to this robot. The line went silent, as I assumed the software at the other end of the line tried to work out of fuck off was. I'm sorry? Have you or a loved one been in an accident in the last 6 months? The recording repeated, this time with a slightly different lilt and the addition of I'm sorry at the start. I have, actually. Someone fucked up my car, drove right up my ass, and now my neck is in so much fucking pain, and I wish the other driver was dead. Is that what you want to hear? Do you believe you have experienced whiplash as a result of an accident? You could be entitled to compensation. I can I? I said sarcastically. Go on then, get me my fucking compensation. Get me justice. I just need to take some details, the robot woman said. I was actually impressed the software could get something useful out of my expletive-ridden speech. Where did this accident occur? On the way into my company car park, I replied, not aware I was now becoming compliant, though I didn't care. I could feel some of that pent-up aggression leaving me. I can definitely recommend complaining to a machine. And what date was that? 22nd of this month, Monday. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. There won't be any more. Do you have the details of any other vehicles involved? Yes. Fucking Marcel shithead Metz. Thank you. Please wait a moment. I was calm by then. I felt good. Now, I just need to take some personal information. I've changed my mind, I said and hung up. I got ready for work and left. While driving to work, I barely heard the phone ring over the sound of the squealing from the back of the car. "Hello?" I shouted. "I can't talk now." I heard someone on the other end talk, but the noise was too loud to hear. "Hang on," I said, and I found somewhere to pull over. "Sorry about that." "Nothing to worry about, Mr. Sampson." "And who might you be?" "I am following up on a claim you made for an accident you recently had." "Oh, fuck me," I said. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sampson. Is this a bad time?" It wasn't a recording this time. It was a real woman, and instantly I felt embarrassed by my swearing. "I apologize. I thought you were a machine." "Nonsense, Mr. Sampson. I've heard worse. Now, we only need a bit more information for you to make a claim." "I'm really not interested," I said. "Are you sure?" "I heard the sound when I phoned. That doesn't sound good. Was that a result of the accident?" "Yes, but I'm not interested." "I'd be mad too if I was left with damage like that and the other guy is driving a new car." "Who are you?" "I only need a minute of your time to get a few pieces of information." "Wait a minute. How do you know my name?" "You gave it in the introductory call." "I certainly did not." "Mr. Sampson, can I call you Ted?" I'm hanging up the phone now. "Wait, before you go, you said you wanted justice. I can give you that." "I love justice, but not the type you're offering. You're a fucking spam company is what you are. Randomly phoning people until you get some sucker to give over all their details and you keep 90% of the payout." "We are not like that at all, Mr. Sampson." I'm hanging up now, and don't call again, I said. Again. The company phoned back twice during the rest of my journey. I parked next to Marcel's brand new piece of corporate shit and accidentally slammed my door into his as I got out. I'm not proud of that, but fuck him. We avoided eye contact all day. I didn't ask him about his mate because if I did, he'd make me feel like I was the shit on his shoe, and I'd do something I regret, like slash his tires or piss in his milk. I'd come to terms with the fact I'd need to call my insurance and do it all above board. This brings me to this morning. I'm leaving for work. A letter dropped through my letterbox. It didn't have my address on it, only my name, written in pen. I opened it to find an invoice for £2,500. I didn't recognize the company name, Accidents and Resolutions Limited. I knew who that was, and I wasn't going to pay a damn thing. I called the number from yesterday. I'm sorry, this number is no longer in use. Another fucking robot. This was a number on the invoice. I phoned that. It rang a few times, and then I heard a recording. It was a soundbite from my conversation on repeat. I have, actually. Someone fucked my car up, drove right up my ass, and now my neck is in so much fucking pain, and I wish the other driver was dead. Is that what you want to hear? Go on then. Get me my fucking compensation. Get me justice. I listened to it a few more times before it stopped. Your accident claim is being processed. Please hang up or press 0 to take our survey. My phone vibrated. I checked the screen. It was my boss. I hung up and answered. Sorry I'm late. Something came up, I said before my boss could speak. Get your ass down here. Marcel hasn't turned up and we have, name redacted, in today. I need you on your A game. Do you think you can step up? This could be your chance to impress. Yes, I can do that, I replied. Today went well, super well, in fact. £2,500 seems reasonable. I think I better pay it. It was a tragedy that pulled me into this mess. It was a bus crash that resulted in a major pileup on an interstate, one that killed dozens and injured many more. It was pure luck I wasn't one of the fatalities. While the freeway was my normal route to work, that morning I had other thoughts. Well, my phone did actually. The wife insisted I download this Horoscope app, and so I did. The readings were mostly cheesy. but I went with it. Every morning, I would get a notification. My day at a glance, they would call it. Now, normally it was just inspirational things that would make you think, but that morning was different. Everyone is going to die. You can't save them, so save yourself, Aries. Take the back roads. Now, I looked at it puzzled. This was a complete 180 from what it would normally tell me. I suppose this is where I lie and say I instantly knew what would happen that day, but I didn't know anything. Honestly, while I was on edge, the only reason I actually took the back roads that morning was because of construction. It wasn't until after I'd heard what happened, and I started thinking it could have been something else. I was skeptical of it all. There was no way that app could have predicted it. That's only stuff you see in stories. It's just a ploy to make people feel better about themselves. It couldn't have predicted the future, could it? As the days followed, I found myself hovering over my phone every morning, waiting the notification, awaiting to know my future. And when I finally got that one weird reading again, I should have known it could change everything. Someone who has wronged you will face their demise tonight, Aries. Trust no one, not even those closest. They may have the deadly intentions. I did a double take as the screen illuminated my groggy face. My blood ran cold as my head tried to wrap itself around what I was reading. I should have deleted it right then and there. I should have forgotten about it all, but I was filled with curiosity. It couldn't have been real, but it was impossible to put my mind at ease after that. I had a million questions, but no answers. The day ran typically normal, and as the hours passed with no incident, and my once on edge self fell at ease, I survived the day. But that night is where everything would change. It was almost midnight when I got the call. The number was my wife's, but as I picked it up, I was met with someone else's voice. I fell away from reality as they began saying they were a nurse at a local hospital, but 4 words threw me back into reality and captured my attention almost instantaneously. There's been an accident. What I did after that was a blur. I don't remember getting kids a babysitter. I don't remember going to the hospital. I just remember sitting in that empty waiting room awaiting good news. It felt like hours before 2 men approached me and presented themselves as my wife's doctors. I could tell by the look in their eyes something was wrong, and before I could even say anything, one of her doctors began by telling me they did everything they could, but her injuries were too critical. He said she was burnt alive somehow. Said that the firemen couldn't even explain how the car had caught fire. He said everything so bluntly and without hesitation. It was like they spent an entire week in med school learning the bad news speech. The rest of that night was filled with emotional phone calls, tears, and a lack of direction. Not once had the horoscope even come into my mind that night. That was until I finally received her belongings from the hospital this morning. As much as it hurt, I opened up her phone. I wanted a glimpse of her world, but I didn't get that at all. I got an overview of a series of texts from another man. As I read through the racy texts, I was slapped in the face by the brutal reality that laid before me. She talked about killing me. She said she was going to slit my throat, collect the money, and take off. She said she wanted a new life. She wanted away from everything, even the kids. By then, tears rolled down my face as I sat in my car staring endlessly at the phone screen. And as I was trying to comprehend everything, I got a notification from the app. and those 4 words made me question everything. You will die next. I'm typing this out because I don't know where else to take it. All I know is that I might be in danger. Lately, I've been having these dreams of another life. In them, I'm living in the States, in Virginia, and I'm married to a man. I work as a hockey coach for a local team, and my husband carves beautiful custom wooden pieces for cash. Every time I bring it up to my wife, Lola, she flinches and changes the subject. We met at a coffee shop in Berlin years ago after I moved here from, I forget the state in America, when I got bored with my job as a doctor and wanted a change of pace. I now work as a baker for a small local restaurant that does a lot of business, and we are very happy, but the dreams, I just don't understand what they could possibly mean. Then there was this man I met at the bakery. He said that his name was Skylar and asked me for my name. I told him Brian, and we shook hands. There was something so incredibly familiar about the man. I couldn't place my finger on it until that night he was in my dream as my husband. We were cutting our wedding cake, and he smiled at me and kissed my lips. His hand holding mine felt the same as it did in the store, warm and rough from woodworking. I told my wife this, and she responded flustered, asking me to stop talking about those dreams, telling me that they meant nothing. Later that month, she had gotten a promotion at work, and we ended up moving across the country. I found a job easily at another restaurant in desperate need of a baker. My thoughts still drift back to the man I met at the other restaurant now and again, of how much I wanted to kiss him, wrap my arms around his body, to lay with him. When we had our first child, a boy, I decided that we should name him Skylar. Why that name jumped out, I have no idea, but my wife agreed to it, but she seemed wary for some reason. That fall, the dreams returned. This time, they were more nightmares than dreams. I was tied down, the man, my husband, tied to a chair, as a woman who looked like my wife sexually abused me. All the while, the man cried as he watched. One night, I woke up in a cold sweat, shaking. My wife found me in the bathroom, throwing up, and asked what was wrong. I just told her something vague about not feeling well, and went back to bed. The next day, I saw the man again when we visited her parents on holiday. This time, he gave me a big hug, like he knew me forever. We stayed like this, for what felt like forever, before finally parting. The same nightmare came back, only this time, I was chained to a bed with the woman that looks like my wife on top of me. And again, I woke up feeling sick. This time, my wife thankfully did not wake up, as she was exhausted from spending time with her family all day. About a month later, I got a call from him. I keep my phone in the bag when I'm at work, as it is against company policy to have it on you while you're working. So when I checked it on my break, I noticed the missed call and rung it. The man answered the phone and asked me to meet him in the park at 5:30, saying that he needed to talk to me. My shift ended at 5, and my wife is out of town with the little one, so I agreed. When we saw each other, he gave me a big warm hug, like the other day, one of his hands in my hair. We then sat on the bench and talked for what felt like hours. He told me that he kept having these dreams about me, ever since we met that day at the restaurant. Dreams where I was his husband. When he brought up Virginia, I told him about the dreams I'd been having. What's creepy is they seem to link up. Then he kissed me, and I kissed back. His lips felt so familiar on mine, and I had a vision, one where we were sitting outside in the yard. The yard work had just been completed, and we were sitting on a bench under a tree when he cupped my chin and kissed me. As soon as we broke for air, I told him what I saw, and he said that he saw it too. When I arrived home that night, I couldn't shake that feeling, that I know him, or knew him. My wife was still gone, so I did some digging through old photo albums. The first thing I noticed was the lack of pictures of us together from when we were dating, which is odd because I remember us being together for far longer than the pictures go. The only ones of us as a couple go back a couple of months before we were married. Then I checked for something else, the thing that would identify exactly what state I had left, as I could not for the life of me remember. That's when I found something that chilled me to my core. It was what looked to be an old driver's license. The name on the ID was Chris, and it had my face on it. What's even more chilling was when I looked at the state on the top, it read Virginia. I immediately packed up my stuff and got out of there. I went to a nearby hotel and rang Skylar, asking him to meet me in the lobby of said hotel. An hour later, he was there, and I guided him up to my room. On the way there, I bought some bourbon, ice, and a couple cups, because I figured we'd both need it. When we got in, I immediately poured us both a big drink, thinking that we'd need it for what I was about to show him. I pulled out the ID I found and handed it over to Skylar, who went totally white. That looks like the ID they found on me when I was discovered in the woods nearly 3 years ago. I asked him what he meant, and he explained that, one day, he woke up in the woods with no memory of anything. When he was found, they took him to a homeless shelter, where he found out he had a natural talent for woodworking, and got a job making custom pieces. That last sentence made me feel nauseous, because that's the same thing he did in my dream. After taking a big gulp of bourbon, it's him. He pulled me close and kissed my lips, the taste of the alcohol bringing me another vision. It's the first night of our honeymoon, and we are pissed drunk and fumbling around in bed, our mouths pressed together, and our bodies a tangled mess of sprawled limbs. We ended up sleeping together that night, cuddled up in the same bed, my head resting on his chest. At around 4:30 a.m., we both woke up in a cold sweat. What chilled me to the bone was when he described his dream that the woman abusing him, the woman he described, was my wife. He's never met my wife, and yet gave me a perfect description of her right down to the precise color of her pubic hair. She was taunting him about, Chris was my man now, and in a few months, he won't even remember your name. My wife is set to come back in about 3 hours. What do you think I should do? I think my wife kidnapped me.